Hello and welcome to the Occupational English Test, otherwise known as OET. This training video is on the writing subtest for nurses. Let's take a look. You will be given 40 minutes of writing time. Prior to that, you will be given 5 minutes of reading time. Your word limit ranges from 180 to 200 words. This letter has to be written on the basis of patient's case notes, which will be provided. The total marks is 500 and the grades range from A to E. The topics given are specific to the profession, meaning depending on your profession, your letter will also be of the same type. The criteria and scoring are as follows. The total marks amount to 38. Out of this, you've got 6 major categories and they are: number 1, purpose. You have been allotted 3 marks for purpose. This basically is about what you're writing and how accurately you understand the task given to you. The next one is clarity and conciseness, for which 7 marks are allotted. Here you have to present your ideas and all of the points mentioned in the case notes. Next comes organization and layout, for which you are again given 7 marks. This is how you write the structure of the letter and how you present it. The next is content, for which again you are allotted 7 marks. This basically tests your ability to write necessary information and relevant information. Genre and style is also allotted 7 marks. This basically sees the tone in which you're writing, whether you are using medical jargon while writing to a medical professional or whether you're writing simple language. Basically, your writing should be presented in a way that it reflects the task. Finally, language, which is again allotted 7 marks. This includes grammar, spelling, vocabulary, also capitalization and punctuation. Now, there are 3 types of letters basically. A referral letter. This is written when a patient is sent to another healthcare facility for a different kind of investigation or treatment. Then you have your transfer letter, which is written when a patient is sent to another healthcare facility or department to continue his or her treatment. And discharge letter is written when the patient is leaving your healthcare facility or clinic and will be going home. Before beginning the letter, you must ask yourself these questions. Who is the person I am writing to? What is the condition? Who is the patient? What type of letter is it? Will the reader gauge the situation? Are your requests obvious to find? Are there any other details? Are you following the structure? The best way to do this task is to follow certain strategies. To begin with, you must read the task carefully. This is to be done in order to familiarize yourself with the information. Once you do that, identify the type of letter, identify whom you're writing to, start with who you are in relation to the patient. Make sure you spend 30 seconds looking at the writing task. Relevance is extremely important. There are a lot of things that might be written in your or given in the case notes that might not be relevant. So you have to scan the case notes actively. Follow the POWER method, which basically means to plan, organize, write, edit and review. Identify keywords, phrases and information. Use the note form while making notes. Complete your letter at least 5 minutes earlier and use the 5 minutes to review and edit your letter. When writing, ensure that you use a formal tone. Do not use casual language or phrases. If you're writing to somebody in the medical field, then use medical terminology but only where relevant. Avoid medical terminology for the layman. Think about your response very carefully. When writing the letter, write in complete sentences and do not use the note form. Now here is a sample structure of the letter. You can refer to this for your practice. This is only one type of letter. So the basic idea here that you have to focus on is the structure. As you can see, at the beginning you have your address, the date, the salutation and the reference to the patient. You begin with stating the purpose here, then mention the medical history, social background, talk about the current condition, Ensure that you mention what type of letter this is or what type of plan is mentioned. It could be discharge, referral or transfer. Put the conclusion. Put your signature line. Leave a space and put your designation. If your name is given, then do mention your name below the designation. Now let's move on to the next bit. This is a description of the questions that are usually given, and what they consist of are as follows. You will be given task details. For example, write a letter regarding Mr. Smith, who is being discharged from hospital back to his nursing home. This task will further contain the patient's case notes and full medical history. So your letter has to be written on the basis of that. Now, what are the parts of the letter? You've got your first part, which consists of the address, date, salutation or reference. Then you have the middle part, which consists the introduction, within which you will be mentioning the purpose of the letter, medical history, social background, etc. And finally, your conclusion, where further relevant information is given. The ending part is the signature line or the signing off or finishing of the letter. Now, the first part. The first part, as mentioned before, consists of the address, date, salutation and reference. Here you have to understand who you are writing to and mention their address. Next, you have to include the date. If there is an appropriate date cited in the case notes, use it. If not, use the current date. This should be followed by dear and the recipient's last name. Make sure when you're writing, you mention that. Next, include the patient's name and date of birth or age. It could be written in two ways. For example, as it says here, R.E. John Smith, date of birth, 04/03/1948, or it could be written as R.E. Mary Jones, aged 79 years. For this, follow the format given in your case notes. Next comes the middle part of your letter. The first portion of the middle part deals with the purpose of the letter. This is present in your writing task. The purpose of the letter could be mentioned in two ways. This part clearly states the purpose of writing with one chief complaint. Sometimes the task is located at the end of the case notes. It also often includes the type of letter. It consists of the letter's main topic. In the first example, you will see that there is a certain type that is mentioned. It says, using the information in the case notes, write a letter of referral to Dr. Smith, an endocrinologist at City Hospital, for further management of Mrs. Sharma's sugar levels. Address the letter to Dr. Lisa Smith, endocrinologist, City Hospital, Newtown. In the second example, you have a little more detailed information. You've got the address mentioned here as well and the date. So it says, using the information given in the case notes, write a letter to occupational therapist at the Old Meadows Extended Care Center, 13 River Street, Old Meadows, where Mr. Spencer is said to be discharged, detailing his treatment to date and other information the therapist may need. Date your letter the 10th of February 2019. So this one is a little more elaborate. Now let's go on to part 2. Part 2 consists of case notes. This is an example where the letter of transfer is usually given, and it requests the ongoing monitoring for a particular patient. This type of letter is often mentioned in the final note of the case notes just above the writing task. For example, using the information given in the case notes, write a letter to the community health nurse in Centerville, outlining the patient's history and requesting ongoing monitoring. Address the letter to the community health nurse, Eastern Community Health Center, 456 East Street, Centerville. The case notes would consist of information such as letter to the transfer of the patient to the care of the community health nurse in Centerville, where the patient is moving to live with his daughter. This is how it is presented. Now let's move on to the next part. In order to begin your letter properly, there are certain introductory lines that you must use. This is compulsory. It should contain appropriate words and phrases. Let's take the first example. Thank you for seeing Mrs. Priya Sharma, a type 2 diabetic, for further management of her blood sugar levels. A second example is as follows. Mr. Spencer has been patient at this hospital for the past 5 weeks and will be discharged tomorrow. He requires your ongoing support and treatment during his rehabilitation. Another way of saying this could be, thank you for accepting Mr. Joy into your care for the regular monitoring of his diabetes and encouragement to comply with his medication and dietary regimens. Now, how do you expand the purpose of the letter? First, expand the reasons, give details taken from the case notes, use complex sentences to explain important details. For example, you could mention something like, further management of blood sugar levels, ongoing support and treatment, regular monitoring of his diabetes. This is an example of a complex sentence. There could be more details which will be covered in the last paragraph. These details should include patient interaction, specific activities, treatment, etc. Finally, the end part. Here you will mention further relevant information and conclude. Usually the last 2 paragraphs are covered here. They include patient's medical history, current medication, general progress, etc. The final paragraph should include information like booking appointment or further monitoring like diet or blood sugar levels, etc. You should end the letter with, please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions. Then put in the ending address, yours sincerely, leave a line space and mention your profession. If the name has been mentioned, then go ahead and put your name below that, otherwise just your profession. Here are some medical prefixes and suffixes that are mentioned. You can use this for your practice so that whenever you are given a letter, you will know what kind of prefixes and suffixes you can use. These are 2-word expressions that are quite commonly used in the medical field. So depending on the kind of letter you get, you can use these words to enhance your vocabulary and grammar. This is your first practice. This is how the format is. Your time limit is given here. And from here begins the case notes. It is the same practice test, just divided into separate slides for better visibility. And this is the last bit. As you can see, your writing task is given here. The task consists of an address and talks about the continued care. From this, take a hint as to what type of letter it is and write accordingly. This is your second practice letter. Follow the same strategies given before and write accordingly. This is the last section. Once again, look at the task carefully. Make sure you read the task first and then get into the case notes. That is the end of this training video. All the best with your practice.